Hey, it's Robert Beard, the host of the Commercial Landscaper Podcast. These podcasts challenge you to grow as a leader, to stretch yourself beyond your comfort zone, and to 10x your company. I really encourage you to enjoy the show, share it with teammates, fellow business owners, and subscribe. That helps us grow our community. Hi, this is Robert Beard with the Commercial Landscaper Podcast. I'm really excited to be joined by Richard Sperber today. Richard, thanks for joining the call.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
I know a lot of people know the Sperber name, but we do have a really wide audience going to Asia, to Australia, all over the world. And I'm sure they'd love to hear your extensive background. So maybe you could share some of the highlights in your career.
All right, I'll try and make it quick because I don't want to bore everybody. But no, my family got into the landscape business almost 80 years ago, a company called ValleyCrest. And so we grew that into a billion-dollar organization. Great place, great culture, amazing people. That's where I learned all my goods and bads of not what to do in life. We ended up merging that business, which is today BrightView. And then about 7 years ago, 6.5 years ago, I started Sperber Landscape Companies. Different experience, right? Started from scratch. And so that's call that 450 million-ish. Mm-hmm. So a lot of learnings there also, getting to start a business from a dead stop to what it is today. And I'm now sort of on my own thinking about what's my next steps in life. So that's my Reader's Digest. I'm sure you're going to have questions, but it's your show. I'll let you ask the questions.
Okay. Yeah. I mean,
by the way, everything sounds so much better with your accent, by the way.
Okay. Well, thank you.
You're making my name sound so cool. So,
well, it's a well-renowned, world-renowned name. So, yeah, I'm really honoured to have you on. And I go back to Scotland once a year, just to top up my accent a little bit, play a little bit of golf, drink a little bit of whiskey, and I'll do actually a little shameless plug. I'm actually doing a industry trip to Scotland the first week in October. So if anybody on the show wants to come along, we've got an elite group of probably 22 people going to be coming along. 5-star hotels, Michelin quality restaurants, golf, whiskey. So we'll be doing that the first week in October. So if anybody wants to come along and join us, come and check out the Wilson 360 website. Maybe Richard, maybe you can come and join us.
That's a lot of fun. I would.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with drinking a little scotch, and I've never been there before. So.
Okay. Well, wonderful place, and as you said about ValleyCrest, just wonderful people. Love the history there. So going into ValleyCrest, I mean, what were maybe some of your early memories? I mean, was your dad bringing you around and getting you to do, out there planting? Were you going around checking out branches? What were some of your best early memories around ValleyCrest?
No, yeah, I mean, since I could walk, I pretty much on Saturdays and in the afternoons, my dad would take me to the yard and put me to work. And our yard guy, a guy named Al Guzman, sort of took me under his wings, and Arturo, the mechanic, and I have like great memories from that, like, working with those guys every summer. And then the guys would come in from the field. This was back in the day, and they would play a little dice, maybe have a beer or two. I don't remember. Not me. I was a kid.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, underline. Yeah. No, I mean, look, I literally grew up in the business, and, I was so grateful for having so many people like take me under their wings and like, teach me. And the manager was a guy named George Reber, who was maybe the best landscaper on the face of this planet. But he was tough, right? And being the boss's son was a negative to him. So he made sure that like he put me through the ringer every day.
So sometimes you hear stories about, family getting an easy pass, but it sounds like this guy put you through the ringer and challenged you a little bit.
Oh, for sure. It was but I'm so grateful for the guys in the field that like helped me out and took me under their wings. And so, but it was tough. I learned a lot from George. So it was a great experience, for sure.
I know, ValleyCrest had so many different divisions. They had the golf, the trees. Was there any particular area that you gravitated towards or had more of a passion for as you got more and more involved in the business?
I always loved the install business. I loved the maintenance business. But at the beginning, we were majority install, and I just loved the big construction jobs and the excitement of them, and the guys I got to work with, and so I always leaned towards that. But uh, as the maintenance business got bigger and bigger, that became my second love.
As you look back of how ValleyCrest evolved, is there any, 2 to 3 decisions that you and your family made that really sort of changed either the industry or the company and how they scaled the business?
I wouldn't say there was 1 or 2 decisions. I think, certainly what my dad definitely taught me was, it's about the people. And, we always took a long view, not a short view of the business. So we were constantly thinking decades, not years.
Hmm.
And so that gave us the ability to have a lot of patience. And so, we weren't looking for that quick hit or that quick success. So I always think our patience was sort of our competitive advantage. It's certainly in today's world, patience definitely is a competitive advantage.
Well, for sure. I agree with that.
Right? If you can have those
100%.
patience, it's true. Yeah, it certainly was one of the things that I think separated us from everybody else. I don't know if that answers the question, but I'm going to stick with it.
Okay, that sounds good. I'll take that as a good answer. I mean, do you think that patience is underestimated these days?
Oh yeah, I think today everything's thought of in quarters. We got to hit, we got to hit, we got to hit. And we always thought in 2 years out, 3 years out, 4 years out. So, it gave us, a long-term perspective of the business on, doing the right thing, right, was always something that was really important to us. And so if you run the business by the quarters, it's really hard to do the right thing for the business and for the people in the business.
Yeah, I think a lot of people I see now are using programs like Scaling Up or EOS Traction, and they talk about those 90-day increments. What are some of the rocks and what are some of the targets within that 90 days? And I yes, you do get some momentum and you do get a lot of things done, but yeah, I also like the long game as well.
I can just tell you that worked for us. That doesn't mean that doesn't work for other people.
Right.
But certainly for the way I look at life, like I'm not the guy worrying about every single quarter. I'm like, how do we build something great?
You brought up an interesting point, and I'm not sure if you remember me, but I was did work for ValleyCrest for a while in the Phoenix branch, and I always remember that ValleyCrest probably provided me some of the best training I ever received within landscape hort industry. I remember going across to Calabasas, being trained by people like Pam Stark, and it was unbelievable training. And I think that a lot of that is missing these days. With all the M&E activity out there and a lot of private equity coming in, do you think there's a danger on people forgetting about or the people part of the business?
100%. I think that, you mentioned training, and, you mentioned Pam Stark, and by the way, Bruce Wilson, who I think you might know also.
Yeah. A little bit.
A little bit, I don't know. Taking a guess there. That was one of our mantras. And with our long-term thinking and not our quarterly thinking, we could spend the time to develop people, because you can't develop somebody in a quarter, right? And it also costs money to train people. So if you're thinking the long term, right, that's an investment that you're making in the biggest asset we have, which is people, right? And so I see that really, we were still in our, infancy stages. I'm not saying the word right. I apologize.
Sorry.
There's so much more we were going to do with training. And, I think that's going to separate the companies who have the world-class training programs, the bigger some of these companies are getting.
Yeah.
And I don't, I personally don't see that the industry is spending a lot of time and money or focus on that.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. I mean, hopefully that changes with, I suppose, maybe interest rates maybe going down or some scalability coming into place. But it would be nice to see that training platform, whether it be something internally within company or maybe something more on a national stage. What as you help to sort of scale companies, what are some of the things you look at in terms of either obstacles or opportunities as you start to expand? I mean, maybe moving into the Sperber landscape company. Talk through that scale program with them and what it looked like. I mean, did you come in with a vision of where you wanted to go? And
yeah, I don't want to talk about Sperber companies directly, but look, it's an industry I love, and we had I took some time off, and I had clients calling saying, "Hey, we have this big job, we have that big job. We'd love to have you do it. We'd love to have you do it." And so, I decided to relaunch, Sperber, and it was different because it was just me and a couple of people sitting in office going, "Can we pull this off?" Right. And so it was definitely different challenges. Right. And so, my number one challenge was, how do I get some of the great old team members back? So, we had Frank and Nino, I know you had on your podcast, I think a year ago or a while ago.
Yeah, a couple of times actually.
A couple of times. And, I think you might have had Dave Hansen on. And so if it wasn't for some of the support from some of those people and some of the clients, it would have been challenging, but we had the opportunity to buy some great businesses. And so the challenge there is, every company has their own culture and their own way of doing things. And, we thought about, should we just change the name day one versus let them have their own name? And so, we decided, right, wrong, or indifferent, that we should keep the names, and one day we would change them probably, but because these people are very proud of their businesses. They were family businesses. They were running for a long time, and they had great culture. And they all have great founders that were very proud of what they did. And, um, you know, they had people that are very proud of what they built. And we felt that was important to continue to let those people sort of feel that until we could, Sperber was just a name, right? And so we had to build our own success and prove ourselves, I think, before we can just say, by the way, we changed the name to Sperber, which isn't even really a company yet,
Right.
or has no reputation. Or
Yeah. And I suppose that's the big advantage with buying a company and keeping its name, because, if they've already built a great brand within their market, a great reputation, then why disrupt that? I mean, I know there's some platform comes out there, they come in, they rip the band-aid off, and they change the names within the first month or so. And I don't know if there's any right or wrong answer, but I suppose both involve different pain points.
yeah, there is no right and wrong. I think this was just, our choice. And I felt, you know, that these founders have built great businesses and they're very proud of their brands, and the community was proud of their brands, and the people that worked there were, so why not do it slower than faster?
Yeah.
And no one knows the Sperber name, right? So,
Well, I mean, I think a lot of people that have been in the industry, obviously back in the ValleyCrest day, I mean, I think they're all pretty familiar with it. But just like you mentioned Bruce Wilson, I've been to a lot of events over the last couple of years, and as I'll say, oh yeah, Bruce Wilson, great person, great industry guru, and some of the young people don't know who it is just because they're just they're way younger than you and I.
yeah, yeah, and look, we have some great legends in our business. Certainly Bruce would fall into that, and you got the Craig Ruperts of the world, who I don't think a lot of people know anymore, and Frank Mariani's, and so there's I know the Brickman family's not involved anymore, but there was some of those families that I think brought a lot of perspective and patience to the industry that's sort of missing today.
Do you think any of that, much of that knowledge will be lost from some of those industry icons, or you think the people coming into the business now that are starting up a company, growing it, scaling it pretty quickly to that 5 or 6 million within 3-4 years, are just getting their information from other sources now, like podcasts or going to industry events? What's your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I think now I've only been on few podcasts. I think they're interesting. I think it's a great way for people to hear different views and points. And and industry events are also great. I think those things are super important. My concern is the faster we move, it's harder to train our people, and you're getting in, there's all this AI, and people are going to get there's a bunch of shortcuts that are going to affect how we grow our businesses in the future, because it's going to be harder to have greater people to surround yourself with, because there's no shortcut in this business.
Yeah.
All right. And so I see that as the big challenge is, the people aren't going to know what people knew 20 years ago, because
Right.
they can get an app to tell them it, or something in AI that tells them it, which takes away the learning experiences from our people. And you're not going to grow this business without great people.
Yeah, I agree. I think the great people, and even though there's a lot of advantages I see with AI, and it could spit out an answer to your question, I think just somebody having that, getting their hands dirty or being involved in some scenario where they're trying to figure out payroll, or they're missing a bunch of laborers in the field. I mean, when you get to that type of extreme scenario, I mean, you grow up pretty quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we need to give and this goes back to my patients. We need to give those people those experiences, right? And so that's how they learn. That's how they become great people. And so when you skip that out of the process, it's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, 100%. When you were involved in, either buying companies or maybe starting new branches from, organically, what were some of the challenges you had with going back to the people question, and just trying to either merge cultures or get people to start drinking the Kool-Aid of, the core values of the company? What were some of the challenges you saw in there, just trying to get people on board?
Now, I would say we were always more successful in growing a business when we took a great leader in our organization and gave them the opportunity to, I'll use a gentleman named Gary Tungate. He was working in Colorado for us. I wasn't even working at the company at the time. He worked for Bruce, and Bruce brought him on. We gave him the opportunity to move to Florida. He was one of our rock stars, and there was someone to take his place in Colorado, and Gary moved to Florida, and we built a mega company in Florida because we had someone we know, trusted, knew the systems, knew how we did things, versus let's hire someone in Florida that isn't involved in what we do or how we do it. And it adds a whole different risk factor to something that's already risky to do.
No, I agree. We had the same scenario where we would rather promote from within because they were already bought into our systems, our culture, and then it was just a case of transplanting them to a different location, and then let them develop their own little subculture and be successful. So it's almost like giving them an opportunity to start their own business, but without that financial risk.
Yeah, and I would say in my experience, not every time, it would be an exaggeration, but when you hire someone outside the industry who has experience in, running a big company and doing all those things and bringing them in, 9 out of 10, they fail. I could point that in our industry today and stuff that we've done that has failed. There's a lot of, at the end of the day, we mow lawns, but there's a lot of moving pieces, different than most service businesses. And so there's a complexity to it that people don't get. And also our customer, right? This is we're dealing with beauty and a living thing. And our customer, when they want to talk to you, they want to know that, A, you have a passion for it, and B, actually know you're talking about it.
Let's take a minute to thank our sponsors. Urcher is a life brand born from grit, founded by Zach Strausser. The mission is clear: to raise $1 million for the trades by supporting vocational training across North America. Urcher makes tough, smart gear built for landscaping and snow professionals who work hard outside every day in all conditions. Their apparel puts safety first, helps crews look sharp, and honors the pride in their craft. Every purchase has purpose, fueling training programs and building a resilient workforce. Urcher isn't just workwear, it's a culture of respect, resilience, and results. When you contact Urcher, mention Wilson 360 and Zach and his team will take well care of you.
When you bought another company, how did you, I suppose, get the founder, the owner on board with, merging them into your existing platform? Because some of them are tired, they've maybe been in the business for years. Yes, they enjoy that pile of money that is given to them, but obviously you're trying to sell them on the vision for the future.
It's important when you're looking at a company is that they have great people right under that founder, because it's a hard transition for a founder, right? They make every call, they're the boss. I get it. It's a struggle. And, one day you have a lot of money in your bank account, which you're super happy about. And that same day you have some boss calling you saying, "Oh, let's do A, B, C, and D." And the guy goes, "Well, I don't really like doing A, B, C, and D." Like,
It's so true.
we don't do A, B, C, and D. We do it like this, right? And so, I totally get how that, it's a tough situation, right? And so you make them, what we've done is made them, a lot of those people want to slow down, by the way, also, right? So it gives them the opportunity to do something else and to spend time in the business and the things that they're really good at and what they really want to do. And take away all the stuff they didn't like to do. But it's always a struggle because every single person's different. So you can't write some book saying, this is how we're going to transition people, because, we have 14 founders in our business and none of them are the same.
Yeah. It's almost like dealing with some type of coaching, almost like a soccer team or some other sports team where you have to treat them almost a little bit differently.
Exactly.
But you're right. I've also seen a lot of scenarios where owners have been bought. Yes, they're excited about the money, but once that weight is taken off them about either the recruitment piece or dealing with warranty issues or client complaints or something, then they can actually go back to what they actually used to enjoy when they first started the business. Whether it's going out,
landscaping,
and
gardening.
There you go. I was talking to a guy today, and he says he makes a point of going out and cutting the grass. I mean, even though he's looking after I think like an $8 million business. I mean, once a week he's just out there cutting grass because he just really enjoys it, and he's able just to shut off all the other noise from the business.
Yeah, I mean, you really look at it as the bigger your business gets, the less time you spend in the business rather than on the business doing the things that are not landscaping or gardening. And so, that's what you enjoy, but that's what made you successful, because the client wants to talk to you because you know about the landscape and the gardening and the things that need to happen on the project or in the garden, this and that. And you take away the person that has the best ability to deal with the client, and now they're worrying about things that, like, I got to finance some trucks, I got to buy insurance, I got it.
Yeah, if all that's taken away from you, you can actually go back and start having some fun and maybe going home at 4 o'clock or something.
Yeah.
What have you been in scenarios where, maybe you've bought a business or maybe you've got a dysfunctioning branch where you've either had to go in and send in some type of rescue party or maybe even, a team of experts to turn things around, or maybe even considered cutting that out of your portfolio and, just because you spend so much time and effort on that one problem child?
100%, and we're probably guilty of, or at least I've been guilty in my life of, letting some of those go way too long. But, at the end of the day, it comes down to people. We just didn't have the right people in the business. And the only way to get it better is to change the 2 or 3 or 4 people. And then you got to hope they work out. And, we're getting chewed up by the great competitors in the marketplace. And sometimes we, as much pride and ego as we have, sometimes you got to say, I think we're going to go home.
Yep. Yeah, sometimes you just have to cut that out and start over again and swallow that pride and move on.
Yeah. But I would say that happened very few times. If you have a bigger business and you got 50 branches or 10 or whatever it is, right? There's always going to be those 2 or 3 that maybe are underperforming. Maybe it's 4, I don't know what it is. But that's where the patience come in, where like if there was some gold dust we could snap our finger and make them great, we would have figured it out and done it by now.
Hmm.
But it just takes patience, right? Because you have a great person in there, you believe in he or she to do a great job. They just need another year or another 2 years, because each year they get better and better and better. And those turned out to be some of our best leaders, rather than yanking them and saying, you're just not, we need to make 15% today. 8's not good enough. But come on, you're not doing a good job. That's an example of having the patience to let them grow into it.
No, that's so true. And when we go in and do a lot of coaching with companies, one of the things we quickly uncover that a lot of people have been promoted into like a middle senior manager leadership position because they were really good at the job they were doing before, but they've never truly been given some training or development in how to become a good leader. And I think if you really take a step back and figure out, well, how can I train this person into that A player through either internal or external training programs, then you're building that future leaders maybe in different locations.
You do. And just because you hire somebody, just because you call someone the boss doesn't mean that they're leader of the group.
Mhm.
It's that they're the boss. It takes a long term sometimes to turn into a leader and get people to earn your respect, and just doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah. Going back to the M&E activity, every time I talk to Jeff Harkness, Brian Corbett, there just seems to be a new, group coming into the industry, and they see landscaping as this, great platform. And so there's more and more, seems to be more and more buyers out there. But I'm also talking to a lot of, regional, larger landscape companies who are also saying, hey, if these big guys can do it, then why can't we do it? Let's get a little bit of money behind us, and let's start buying companies either within the same state or neighboring states. What's your thoughts around that trend?
I think I don't think it's that easy. So I don't think I don't see any of them being great companies today. There's certainly some big ones, but I still think there's room for someone to be the best, right? And we're not there yet. And so, I still, the next 3 or 4 years are going to be interesting to see what happens to the, you got all these regional guys, and they're owned by private equity, so they're going to have to sell. Who's going to buy them? You have these big guys. None of those have really transactioned yet. So who's going to buy the bigger businesses? It's going to see how this metamorphoses into something. I still think that there's going to be some. I think the next 3 or 4 years is going to be interesting. And I think, you have some, you have some bankers like you mentioned Brian Corbett, who I think's a great banker and really understands the industry and some of that. And so he's someone great to talk to, for sure. But I think that there's going to be it's going to be an interesting 3 or 4 years ahead of us on what's going to happen with, these guys around. Have some, now there's a bunch of regional guys, right? What happens to all of them? Because they're all going to have to sell because they're owned by private equity. Right. And then you have the 4 or 5 bigger companies, right? They're going to have to sell at some point. And so far, none of them have sold. And so something's gonna happen. Something is gonna happen.
Sure.
And more importantly, something that I'm excited about is like no one's put the stake in the ground and has built the greatest company yet again. And so certainly something that I'm furiously passionate about.
That leads into my next question around once you've moved those leaders from that field level up into a middle or senior manager, what have been some of the best techniques to try and retain those people?
Okay, that's a tough question. Look, I think treating people with respect and having them trust you. My dad always taught me, like, protect your reputation like it's everything, which I do. And it's one of the reasons I'm on my own today is like my reputation is everything. And so people know when you're doing the right thing and when you're not doing the right thing. And so they want to work at a place where they know that they can trust the people they're working with and that they're going to do the right thing for them and their family. And they have the integrity and the passion. And so those are the things that I think that keep people with you, right? And, treat them with respect. And by the way, we've had a lot of people leave and a lot of people come back, and giving people the opportunity to leave, like we're proud of that. Like, just off the since I'm talking to you, I'll use Bruce Wilson, right? As an example. He's built an amazing business, right? And his daughter and his son-in-law, right? They both worked at ValleyCrest and came at Sperber, right? And they now have their own business in Santa Barbara, California, Santa Barbara. Like, that makes us proud, like, to see like we're not pissed, we're happy.
No, I actually talked to Kim yesterday, and she seems super excited about that new opportunity. And same scenario I'm in when I travel back to Phoenix, and I see probably 5 or 6 of my old employees that have got companies that are doing between 5 and 25 million. I mean, it makes I don't get jealous. I mean, I get proud of them, and hopefully a few nuggets that I shared with them over the years has rubbed off, and they got that entrepreneurial spirit. So it just makes me proud.
Yeah, and look, I think it was a great decision for them, and I think that they're going to do great. But hopefully, they also know that if it didn't work, that they always have a home back here. Well, Richard Sperber now.
Yeah.
Right. So, right. And that's what builds trust. Like, wow, I'm going to make a big step. Maybe I'm going to leave, but I know that I can always come back. So I could take that chance.
Yeah. Especially if they leave in the right terms. Yeah.
Yeah.
What would be with all your years' experience, for those younger, owners who've maybe just started up the business a few years ago, they're doing maybe 4 to 6 million, what would be the biggest advice you would give them as they sort of, try and navigate through this industry?
Yeah, I think I would say, so I hate to make it the theme of the podcast, but I'm going to go back to patience, right? There's nothing wrong with only growing a little bit for a year. I don't panic. Like, it's a great business, right? And you could build it year after year after year. You have to develop your people, and sometimes the biggest mistake you could do is keep growing when your people aren't ready.
Mm.
All right. And then you have clients that want to leave because this didn't happen or that didn't happen. And there's stress and there's people stressed out working for you. So they want to leave. And it starts like we're in a great business. We just have to have patience and you can build a great business. I mean, I think if you got, the Craig Ruperts, Frank Mariani's, and the guys that built, I think they'll all tell you the same thing. It's like none of us built this business overnight. It only took us 80 years.
Well, it's true when you look at some of even the big companies, non-landscape companies like your Apples, your Starbucks, they took a good 10, 15 plus years just doing minimal revenue, and then just you had that, hockey stick effect where they just suddenly got things, all the dots seemed to connect and the culture came in and they got the products right and they just took off revenue wise. So
there's no shortcut. There's no way, you're not going to buy some app or this is a nuts and bolts business, right? It's all about what happens in the field. Nothing more, nothing less.
Yeah, there's no quick fix. There's no quick solution like an app or some other,
There's not a program out there that's going to get you more clients, gives you the financials 2 minutes quicker. Like, it just doesn't matter. Like, when you sit down, like, what are the 2 or 3 things that are stopping you from growing your business? Right? Very rarely it's like, I don't get my financials quick enough. It's, I don't have the right people. Maybe I can't afford some equipment, right? It comes to things that are focused on the field all the time.
Yeah, 100%. That's where the magic happens.
That's where the magic happens.
Yeah.
Nothing good happens in the office.
It's so true. So true. So what does the next few years look like for you, Richard? Where are you going to be spending your time?
No, God, that's a great question. I think I've had the answer to that right away. Like, this is all sort of new to me. So it's only been a few weeks, but look, I got some exciting things I hope that maybe I could pull off. I still got some energy and passion left in me. So I got to navigate a few things, but I'm still, look, as long as there's an opportunity to put a stake in the ground to say, this is the biggest, baddest company in the industry, I'm still excited about trying to figure out how to make that work.
Awesome. Well, I love it. I mean, I could tell there's a lot of energy there and a lot of passion there. And, just even you just talking about building a great company and what are some of the ingredients to that. I could tell you're so passionate about it. So really appreciate your time today, Richard.
Well, thank you for having me.
That's a wrap for today's episode of the Commercial Landscaper Podcast. I hope you're walking away with some great nuggets that you can immediately apply to your business, whether you're in leadership, operations, or you just want to show up every day with that Ironman mindset. Remember, growth doesn't happen by accident. It happens with intentional moves, bold conversations, and surround yourself with the right people. If you found value today, subscribe, leave a review, or share this episode with others. And again, don't forget to check out wilson-360.com. We have digital courses from account management, operational excellence, leadership development, or some of the other coaching packages we offer. Anyway, a huge shout out to our sponsors. Thank you very much. And I'll leave with this. Have a pure, dead, brilliant day.